Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'm going to share my screen. So again, thank you very much for the kind words and thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and share about the GRACE project. The GRACE project supports the implementation of responsible research and innovation practices in research funding and performing organization. And this frame, the research center of the Slovenian Academy of Sciences and Arts and the European Science Foundation are collaborating partners. The project has been funded by the European Commission under the Science, Wit and for Society work program in Horizon 2020. It started on 1st January 2019 and lasts for 3 years. But before I introduce the project, I would like to say a couple of words about RRI itself. RRI, namely Responsible Research and Innovation, is a term used by the European Union's framework program Horizon 2020 to describe scientific research and technological development processes that take into account the effects and potential impacts on environment and society. This is what the word responsible stands for in the definition, the responsibility for citizens and the environment. Now, various slightly different definitions of RRI have emerged during the last 10 years, but all of them agree that societal challenges should be a primary focus in scientific research. In this view, RRI involves, first of all, holding research to high ethical standards, then ensuring gender equality in the scientific community, investing policymakers with the responsibility to avoid harmful effects of innovation, engaging communities affected by innovation, and ensuring that they have the necessary knowledge to understand the implications by science education and open access. RRI actions are promoted, first of all, by actions on the thematic elements of responsible research and innovation. This is public engagement, open access, gender ethics, science education, and governance, and integrated actions that promote institutional change that foster the uptake of the RRI approach by stakeholders and institutions. And here comes the GRACE project, the GRACE project. Now, GRACE aims to contribute to spreading and embedding responsible research and innovation in the European research era by facilitating sustainable processes of institutional change through the development of a set of smart, so-called grounding actions in the selection of 6 research funding and performing organizations, by coordinating a selection of these grounding actions into specific 8-year-old roadmaps towards RRI, specific for each consortium research funding and performing organization, where the first 3 years, the GRACE project term, serves for paving the way for attaining more complex institutional changes in the long term. And by developing an approach that facilitates rapid institutional change by providing expert support in the frame of mutual learning and co-creation environment. This challenge is faced by a wonderful consortium of 10 partners, 6 implementing organizations that are concentrating on fostering institutional change in their organizations. And one of these implementing organizations is the Research Center of Slovenian Academy of Sciences and Arts, and 6 cooperating organizations that support the consortium implementing organizations by their know-how in assisting in the implementation of this institutional change. The GRACE project is based on the assumption that RRI has a role in complex changes affecting research and innovation ecosystems and institutional life and settings. And in this frame, RRI in GRACE is, first of all, a strategy that helps the research funding and performing organizations to manage the modifications affecting their research and innovation processes, including their own internal operating mechanisms. Moreover, an approach that is aimed not only at promoting the improvement of the interaction between the research funding and performing organization and their external actors, but it also provides more efficient means to cope with their current activities, for example, research assessment, publications, labor relations, access to research funds, citizen engagement, and citizen science. Now I would like to give you a little bit of insight about the key features of the GRACE project. One of the key features of the GRACE project are the so-called grounding actions that I have mentioned already before. What are these grounding actions? The grounding actions are actions or coordinated sets of activities that put down the basis to facilitate the embedment of the RRI keys in the institution or in the institutional processes. Their contents, of course, vary according to the RRI key, but moreover, they are shape-cut for the specific institutional needs. Now, in order to help you to understand what this grounding action can entail, I would like to show a couple of examples per a couple of RRI keys. The first one's on gender equality. A very good example of a grounding action on gender equality may be a drafting of a gender equality plan in the institution, or the organization of awareness raising information sessions to staff on gender issues. Or, for example, for a funding organization, it can be a revision of a gender equality approach in the grant evaluation processes. Now, on open access, it can be the establishment of institutional working groups on open access as it is, or institutional open access guidelines for staff or for all actors of the institution. And finally, a couple of examples on citizen engagement, the evaluation of the benefits of citizen engagement in the activities of an organization, or it can also be a practical example, such as setting up a web-based citizen engagement platform for specific purposes within the organization. Now, the second key feature of the GRACE project is this so-called roadmap towards RRI. Now, what is this roadmap? The roadmap is nothing else, just the logical frame of the grounding action specified for the institution per se in a time frame. And it is organized in a way that it should ensure the sustainability of the total RRI effort of the organization. It is, of course, tailored to the institutional needs and on the basis of rigorous self-assessment. And the third key feature of the GRACE project is the project environment itself. It is based on co-creation and mutual learning environment. In the co-creation process, expert organizations, as mentioned before, support the development and the implementation of the grounding actions at the implementing organization by a specific monitoring and mentoring scheme. And moreover, the mutual learning sessions facilitate the knowledge sharing between the implementing organizations themselves. The GRACE project is based on a traditional three-step methodology, which contains a preparatory phase, an implementation phase, and a stock-taking phase. What does it mean in GRACE? The preparatory phase, which we have already finished, concentrated on the institutional assessment or based on self-analysis of the implementing organizations, specified critical issues and needs, and on this basis developed the self-tailored RRI profile of the implementing organizations, and designed the grounding actions that I mentioned before, and organized into the first version of the institutional RRI roadmaps. During the development and mutual learning phase, where we are there at the moment, we are now focusing on the implementation of the grounding actions. in a co-creation environment and with the help of the mutual learning environment as well. And during the last phase, which we are coming up to in the second part of the next year, we will make the total assessment of the project outputs, and we will focus on the revision of the roadmaps, the institutional roadmaps, with a focus on long-term sustainability. Where we are at the moment, we are close to completing the second year of the project in the midst of the previously mentioned development and mutual learning phase, implementing the grounding actions as identified in the first version of the roadmaps, moreover, gathering and sharing the first experiences between each other and learning from each other. But we have already started thinking in terms of long-term sustainability. And just to close, I would like to underline that the project results and experiences will be available for all interested stakeholders from the end of 2021. And these experiences and results will contain this roadmap framework and the evaluation approach applied in the project, supported by examples and experiences. And thank you very much for your attention.